Hello and welcome to Forum for Global Studies' latest podcast, where we invite prominent changemakers and academic personalities of eminence to share their insights on the burning topics of relevance in the present times. I'm Colonel Manoj Kumar Singh, Director of Research at the FGS, who would be your host for this afternoon's podcast. Before joining the FGS, I superannuated from the Indian Army after rendering 33 long years of service. I had the privilege to command my regiment, 10 Bihar Regiment in Kashmir Valley. I also had the great privilege to train with the US Army in 1997 in psychological warfare. Forum for Global Studies is an independent, progressive, non-profit, non-partisan think tank based out of Delhi. It is dedicated to promoting quality research and de novo discourses on public policy, geopolitics, diplomacy, and international relations. This afternoon, we are delighted to have with us Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General at the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, a New Delhi-based think tank. I'm sure many of our listeners would already be knowing him well since his book, The Logic of Sharing, Indian Approach to South-South Cooperation, has been acclaimed internationally as one of the best volumes on international development cooperation. He also works prominently on issues related to development economics, evolving development finance, sustainable development goals, and South-South cooperation. Currently, he is also the Vice Chairman of Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Good Governance and Policy Analysis. He is also an ex officio Vice Chairman of Madhya Pradesh State Policy and Planning Commission. He is also member Board of Governors at the Reserve Bank of India and is presently actively involved in G20 summit, which is going to take place later this year in India. Professor Sachin Chaturvedi has been part of several important initiatives of the Government of India and takes keen interest in transforming economic policy making towards integrated and evidence-based approaches. He is one of the foremost commentators on India's external sector, economic engagements and partnership. He has authored over 22 books and is on the editorial board of several journals, including South Asian Economic Journal, IDS Bulletin of Sussex, UK, amongst many others. Coming to the topic of this podcast, opportunities for projection of India's soft power in the light of G20 summit. Since we have very limited time, we'll invite our speaker and we'll take on questions. But before that, just brief introduction. In addition to economic and military power, the idea of soft power has gained traction during the past few decades. Indian arts, culture, yoga and spiritualism, culinary varieties, festivals, music and dance forms, etc., have attracted people from all around the world for centuries. What is soft power? The term was first used by Professor Joseph Nye of US, Howard professor. Basically, it was in 1990s, and later on, his book came in 2004. Soft power is a country's ability to influence the preferences and behaviors of various actors in the international arena without coercion. It's using persuasion. So now that India has taken over the presidency of G20 from Indonesia, and we have planned large number of events, and you are currently involved in many of those. We'll take on our first question as to how do you see the journey of India's growing soft power?
Thank you. Thanks, Colonel Singh. I would very much like to draw out of this binary that is there, hard versus soft power. And I think countries that have sort of huge inclination towards hard power are also the ones who have been seeing this coming from the prism of international affairs, looking into power of another kind, and they see engagements as soft power. For countries like India, there is no soft power per se. the term that has got popularized in coinage, as you very rightly said, from a country which believed in hard power and seeing even the softer part of diplomacy also as a power. And we see that more embedded in our idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where we see what we say in the G20 commitment of one earth, one family, one future. So there is no idea of power here. The idea is more in terms of what we have and what is it that we can share with everyone. And there is no question of any kind of assertion with any authority or with power. So I think this binary of hard power versus soft power is not something that Indian philosophy, Indian thought process, or even Indian commitment to the idea of global actors coming together. It is not embedded in the concept of power. And I think it's high time that we come out of this term of soft power versus hard power. And I think soft power is also not a power to assert. It is to include everybody. Sabka saath, sabka vikas. So the idea of bringing everyone together for collective progress. That's the concept. And that's why India has very rightly chosen the theme of one earth, one family, and one future. So this is largely how we see the global community, not from the power lens, but more from Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam perspective.
Wonderful, sir. Sir, what are the major steps taken by the present government, in your view, in using India's soft power as a tool in projecting itself as global power?
No, definitely, Colonel Singh. If I continue to bank on your idea of the conceptual frameworks that are needed in terms of what soft power is, and if I go by the issues which are important in what way we define soft power, if I borrow your phrase and go ahead with that, I think you can see India's projection of soft power at 4 different levels in the G20 presidency. First and foremost, of course, is the idea of intellectual power, which I think is the prowess that we have come up with in a couple of years of our development. And that's where direct engagement comes in from the Prime Minister and the commitment of the government in terms of bringing in new narrative on our development process. So after the collapse of the Washington Consensus and after the collapse of the development paradigm emanating out of Western approaches, we find several new concepts have come up where Indian G20 presidency has prevailed. And we have prevailed time and again with new concepts as they are coming in. First and foremost, there is the idea of LIFE, L-I-F-E, lifestyle for environment, which Prime Minister articulated at COP26 and now is cutting across all the engagement groups and all the working groups of the G20. And this is something which is going to influence how we look at the process of life, how we see lifestyle, what is individual responsibility, what is the responsibility of international financial institutions, and how this concept of life can be absorbed to give a more meaningful concept to all the agencies that are supporting process of development. Second is, of course, our own domestic legislation, but it brings in accountability in the finance track, and that is our own insolvency and bankruptcy code, IBC, which we came up with. And this gives a huge lesson as to how other countries can manage the whole challenge of NPAs and others in terms of how the governance within finance track may come in. 2 more examples I would like to give. One is our own Gati Shakti program, which has bring in this idea of sequencing of infrastructure financing. Several projects come up. The international financial institutions are supporting huge number of development projects across, but there's hardly any effort to sequence them in such a manner that they recipient country or the country which is beneficiary of these funds is taking full advantage for longer duration of time. And this is, I think, important. Similarly, our idea of digital currency has given a new impetus in terms of how CBDC-related global norm setting is triggered in. And this is something which is happening. So first and foremost, Colonel Singh, is the idea of we focusing on conceptual issues. Second is the idea of how we are focusing on tourism and our technology prowess. And this comes in from digitalization, which is important for digital India. And that is also important in terms of how we are looking into the questions that are important from the perspective of promoting digital transactions. So wherever these meetings are happening, local markets are coming up and everybody is being enabled to have digital payment systems. And we are also giving them free access to Indian ecosystem for payments. And those payments are now, like for instance, in Khajuraho, when the group met there, the tourism group met there, the idea was to enable all shopkeepers to have digital payment architecture and all the visitors also getting free RuPay to do the transaction. So this is our soft power. This is our ability to communicate technological bandwidth of India and bringing in the dimension. Similarly, when Supreme Audit Institution SAI 20 recently met in Shimla, which is led by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, CAG. So CAG and his team, they met and discussed about artificial intelligence. They discussed about SDG implementation, Sustainable Development Goal implementation, which is a huge strength for India. So these are other flagship programs which have become a reflection of our soft power. Conceptual contribution I already counted, technological contribution I counted. The fourth and the last is in terms of showcasing our touristic destinations. Like for instance, when the second global partnership for financial inclusion, the first was in Kolkata, second was in Hyderabad. And this meeting showed Hyderabad as city of pearls. So all the delegates visited several pearls shops across Hyderabad. And Hyderabad's idea of Make in India, idea of India as destination for luxury items, India as destination for things which are important, that came in. If this was for a city of pearls, there were 56 touristic destinations that were identified under green tourism. So there you find, Colonel Singh, a huge sort of bandwidth to support and take the idea forward in terms of how we are projecting India's progress, both in terms of our engagement, but also trying to see how countries, participants, delegates are taking advantages in terms of their both purchasing power, their impressions, and also inside the conference room with the agenda of the conceptual frameworks that we have tried to evolve.
So you very lucidly summarized the whole initiative that Government of India is taking during this G20. I mean, there could be no better person than you to explain all this. And as you mentioned, sir, we indeed are one of the largest populations to use UPIs, which is coming in as a big boon to the Indian economy, and it is bringing transparency in all that thing. And nobody thought a few years back that it will be popularized even in rural areas. Sir, coming to the next question, what are the challenges in projection of Indian soft power, and what ideas can you suggest how these can be overcome?
Certainly, I think if you see, Colonel Singh, there are a couple of issues, like, for instance, India would have to do a little bit more in terms of connectivity to such locations. Like, for instance, the Principal Scientific Advisor, PSA's office, is holding the Science 20, S20 meeting, and this is happening in Ramnagar in Uttarakhand. We have to take a sort of chartered flight to that destination. So if connectivity is improved, commercial flights are operating as under Udan 3, we have tried to now connect tier 3 cities. But Prime Minister's emphasis that more than 200 meetings should all happen outside Delhi is such an important I would say, commitment for us to bring forward strength of India across various regions. So, irrespective of connectivity related challenges, we are seeing that cultural working group met in Khajuraho. I said the PSA's office S20 is meeting in Ramnagar. There are these sort of Sultanpur National Park where the ACWG met. So these are some of the initiatives where various destinations are being sort of chosen. As I said, for more than 200 meetings, 56 locations have been chosen, and 17 states are being covered. So, and those states where we do not find any meetings listed, we find more and more engagement groups are going in all states. So everybody is being covered and engaged. So it has become a larger sort of opportunity for everyone. And Colonel Singh, we should also go a bit deeper in terms of the gain out of the process. And this is our soft power for decades to come. And this is in terms of this very important idea that we have to see September 9th and 10th is the summit. And after the summit is over, you find a bit of an effort that the presidency would go by 30th of November to Brazil. And Brazil would then take the presidency forward to South Africa. So there are two things here. One, Prime Minister also got launched, which my own institute, RIS, is leading in terms of University Connect. So there, what we are trying to do is to see that we reach out to 75 universities across the country, celebrating the 75th year of our independence, and trying to see how our future generation, our youth, is oriented towards this international role that we are trying to promote. So this would prepare our next generation in terms of how global orientation has to come in. As of now, these events were largely in Delhi, with very limited diplomatic exercise, and diplomatic community used to be there. Some students from JNU at the most would come, but otherwise none. As of now, we are reaching out to 75 universities in all the official areas, trying to bring forward how these universities, students, evolve an international perspective. That, Colonel Singh, is something important that all countries, all regions are also equally part of it. And this is something which, because I have been participating in G20 meetings for more than 10 years now, I can very well say that participation of southern countries, of the developing countries, it has been very marginal in the G20. And I have been representing the think tank, the T20 in the think tank community. And I never used to meet many Indians there, leave aside people from other developing countries. So now Indonesian presidency, Indian presidency, Brazilian presidency, South African presidency, all these four presidencies have extremely difficult challenge to have more people who are aware of G20, who understand the process, who can even count 20 countries, which 20 countries we are talking about, which countries are additionally invited, what new international organizations are participating. So it's not just 20 countries that come. It is a huge paraphernalia that comes in. In each meeting, more than 250 people are there from various agencies. They all sit. So it is called G20, but there are several permanent invitees, several other countries, and very few people have. So the lasting impact of our diplomatic activity of this exercise is far beyond diplomacy. It's far beyond soft power. It is much deeper. And the preparation of the next generation through University Connect, through youth Y20, they are going to take the message forward for the next generation to have more international perspective. And international perspective is now no more confined to those who are studying international relations. No, all students, so be that from science, from economics, from commerce, from all subject streams, they are finding G20 an international opportunity. And that I think is important when India turns 2047, a developed country, we would have a global vision for all the people.
Oh, definitely, sir. And it is Prime Minister Modi's initiative that we have gone into making this G20 summit a very collaborative one, and including the general public and even like what you mentioned, all the universities, etc. It's a great initiative, and this is the way people will participate. Even smaller places are now developing because of these small events that are taking place there. Exactly. So one last question. I was going through a report by Lowy Institute of Australia, wherein they were comparing soft powers of various countries, and wherein they have compared US, Chinese, and Indian soft power and that projection capabilities. And I was quite surprised that China is way, way ahead. And both hard power we'll not talk about, but even soft power. I always thought we are very old civilization. We have much more to give to the world. And to my surprise, it was the Chinese. They were ahead in every facet. How do you compare the Chinese soft power with that of India, sir?
Colonel Singh, as I said in the beginning, this idea of looking at our civilizational connect from power perspective is misplaced. Any number of frameworks to measure any kind of soft connect from that perspective is not going to take us very far. I think the genuine concern of all countries is to participate, is to connect. And I think the soft power of India, if at all you look at it from that perspective, was absolutely clear on 12th of January when Prime Minister Modi called for the Global South Summit. And as you know, 112 countries participated on 12th of January and 13th of January. India announced a Center for Excellence for Global South. And this center is going to take India's connect with the rest of the countries together. The amount of resistance that you are seeing against China for the loans that or the credits that with Belt and Road Initiative you are seeing all across, the global indebtedness, they all are testimony to that negative power that you are accumulating. So I do not see any reason for us to get swayed away by reports or studies of this nature. I think we need to see what is happening on the ground. If we are somewhere lower in whatever way they are measuring, I have no problem if there are no negative concerns about India, and I do not see that happening, except one country may have 500 grudges against us, but that country is also collapsing under the indebtedness. So let them see. But I think largely, I think 112 countries have endorsed the dimension. And we are finding it more and more important because if you see even on biodiversity issues that are related to ecotourism, now you have your 7 states of Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Karnataka, Sikkim, and Kerala. All states have now been acclaimed for ecotourism by UNEP and by others. So this is a soft power strength that we have. And I think on that positive strength, India can play much more than on negative marking by any institute for that matter.
Oh, thank you so much, sir, for your very incisive and insightful conversation and the talk we had. Very, very indebted to you, sir, that you accepted our invitation. May I now invite Dr. I.K. Singh to give a word of thanks, please. You are mute. Dr. I.K., you are mute.
Good afternoon, sir. It's my proud privilege to give vote of thanks on this occasion of this important guest lecture on, opportunity for projection of India's soft power in the light of G20 summit. Sir, I'm very happy the way you have beautifully explained, this hard power and soft power, and the example which have been given by you, Vasudev Kutumbakam, Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas. So undoubtedly, under the leadership of great Prime Minister Narendra Modi, definitely this G20 summit will be going very successfully. And from your valuable time, you have given, your valuable time for our forum. And I'm very grateful on behalf of the entire family of Forum from Global Studies. I extend my sincere thanks to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us and giving a valuable suggestion as far as G20 summit is concerned. And my sincere thanks to Colonel Manoj Singh, sir, Nandini and Sachin Chaturvedi, and my director, Dr. Sandeep Tripathi from the Forum of Global Studies. Thank you so much to all for joining us. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
having more engagements with you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.